Today on Parts Hold, we have an amazing guest. Kaylee Felio is going to talk about her decade of working with parts departments. We're going to give you the 3 tips, the 3 superpowers of the best performing parts managers. We're also going to debate things like Subway sandwiches and possibly the best snacks on the planet. I'm Christian Lafferty, this is Cliff Honeycutt, and welcome to Parts Hold.
Here to fill the order.
Hi Kaylee, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Good. I'm hoping you can settle a debate for us. So apparently, our staff is really encouraging us in this parts hold endeavor that we're doing. And now we've got the staff actually, it's almost like being a rock star probably,
Yep.
where we have got not 1, not 2, but 3 different items. So we've got Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, beef jerky, and gummy bears. Gummy bears are Cliff's favorite. But we were just wondering, what do you, of those 3, do you have a favorite?
Well, I think all 3 of them are my favorite.
Okay, that's the right answer for sure. Okay, but now it's really important, like, what order would you do? Because that could affect how the rest of this podcast goes.
I would do beef jerky first, Reese's, then gummy bears.
Welcome to the show. Well done. That's perfect. I believe that the beef jerky and peanut butter cup is way better than the gummy bears, but I feel like there's someone sitting next to me that would disagree.
Yeah, I probably would start with the gummy bears, and my kind of methodology for that is you've got to get the appetizer out of the way, and so I feel like that kind of lays the foundation. Then you kind of layer it from there. I would say that I would finish everything off with the Reese cup. That would be my last one because that's probably my favorite out of the group, to be completely transparent as much as I can be.
Yeah,
All 3 of
I
them
like.
are my favorite things. So
Yeah, I can't even think of anything I'd put on the list besides those 3. Maybe
Yeah.
like a Milky Way.
So I do have one that I would put on the list. But
Tuna.
Tuna?
Yeah.
He's got a weird thing about tuna, Kaylee. So like every time I see this guy, he's traveling with a pouch of tuna. I'm like, hey Cliff, do you want to grab a bite to eat? He's like, no problem. So he pulls a pack of tuna out of his backpack.
That's true.
Weird with all of his snacks and stuff.
He's also the guy on the plane that smells it up.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Open a pack up, let it waft back to the back of the airplane. Absolutely.
So we're some people when they get on the plane, they're looking for leg room or they're looking for the window seat or the aisle seat. Cliff's like, where's the ventilation system? Because I need to share this with the rest of the plane.
And I try to get an outside edge seat, so I trap the people inside. They can't get in, or can't get out rather. Trap them on the inside, so then you let the smell just kind of waft back. And I typically try to get to the front of the plane so it has a good trail to the back.
Yeah,
I'm that
exactly.
person.
Yeah. Right.
Yes, he is. You got it right in the head. Which reminds me, Cliff, I've got a question for you. Why don't dinosaurs talk?
I don't know why dinosaurs don't talk.
Because they're dead.
Kaylee's reaction may be the best one yet.
Oh.
Well, my daughter thinks dinosaurs are still alive. So
Oh. Well, where you're at, that could be possible.
that is
That's
true.
a good point. And also the Jurassic Park dinosaurs look really real.
Yes, for sure.
All right, cool. Well, we've got, I hope you guys are excited. Kaylee is an amazing guest. We're super excited to have her on. She's been around the parts game for a really, really long time. We're going to get into a little bit about what she's also doing to raise awareness about parts departments all over the industry. And Kaylee, why don't we start off a little bit about your journey? Kind of just walk me through how you got to here, if that makes sense.
Okay, well, it's a funny story.
Well, that's
how
good because
all of them start.
because we need humor on this thing. So that's awesome that it's funny.
Well, I don't know if it's like funny, but it's unique, I guess. I don't know. So the owners of Parts Edge, one of them, Chuck, he loves Subway. And the Subway restaurant that I was managing was in the same like parking lot as offices of Parts Edge. So they were my regular customers. Cliff didn't really like Subway that much, but he went with Chuck. And yeah, so I got to know them. They asked me if I knew anyone looking for a job, which I like, it went right over my head. They were actually asking me, but they're being nice about it. And like, I think a week later, I was like, well, actually, I think I'm interested, because I was at this point where I was 2 years into college, wasn't quite sure what I wanted. I knew I wanted a career. I knew I didn't want to stay at Subway for the rest of my life. So um, I took them up on their opportunity, and I got to learn the operation side of what we do for parts departments. And I'm trying to make it a long story short, because there was a short period where I left in between and I went off and did a totally different industry. I went into real estate because I found I was in that discovery stage of my life. Like, what do I really want to do? And I really liked what I was doing at Parts Edge, but I wanted to do sales and marketing. I really like the relationship aspect of it and talking to people and solving problems. So yeah, so I went and did real estate, then came back to Parts Edge because they had an opening, and I took them up on it. So
Well, the real estate thing makes sense to me because you have like this natural ability to network. That's probably one of the things I think that's helped you out, and that's like one of the strong strengths required of someone that's really good in real estate. So that jump makes sense to me.
oh, okay. Yeah,
But
it was a failure though. I treat it as a failure because I didn't do that great as a real estate agent. I mean, I sold houses, but it wasn't like what I thought it was going to be. I was kind of
yeah.
disappointed. I'm like, man, I thought this was going to be totally different. I think what I discovered is I liked B2B and not consumer sales. That's what I.
Oh, okay.
Makes sense.
So that kind of follows me to my next thing is I look back on my career, and Cliff is the same way. Anytime we've had a failure, it was always the best lesson, right?
Yeah.
So if you come out of that knowing that B2B is your thing, then it was a lesson worth learning.
Yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
that's almost a tongue twister.
Yeah.
Lesson worth learning.
But, and I think another thing does
And then that was hard to say.
it doesn't make us less of an individual too,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it just means that we're not good at that, or we weren't good at that particular item, and so we just find what we're good at. So that's
Yep.
cool.
Yeah, and what it was cool was Parts Edge didn't have any marketing before, and so when I came back with the opportunity of being in sales, I'm like, well, if I'm going to do this, we also need marketing too, because they work together.
Oh,
So
that's interesting.
Yeah. I think that's actually, it's probably a different show, but parts departments and understanding marketing, I think, is a huge opportunity. I mean, just that subject in itself. I think in the automotive industry, it's always been thought about that variable gets the marketing or the advertising dollars.
Yes.
And really, what I think that we're going to see is this huge shift back. But the ability to market from a parts standpoint could be a superpower, I think, for people going forward. But that's cool that you've kind of got that mastered. Now, I've got a really important question for you. What was your favorite sub at Subway?
oh my gosh. So I love them all because I got to eat it every day. And I actually still eat it. Like when I'm on the road, I always get Subway because it's easy. But I love the BMT. It's pepperoni, salami, and ham.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I've always liked the meatball sub.
I never actually,
Ooh.
that's the one I didn't like.
So I'm a big fan of the meatball sub too. Do you put everything on it?
No,
Just plain, just-
I like cheese and the meat and the sauce.
Oh, I like to have
That's
it with everything on it, so then it becomes like a salad plus
Oh
the
my
meatball
gosh,
sub.
he is that customer.
Look
I
at you.
hated when everyone ordered everything on meatball.
Yeah, and he would probably be the one. He'd be like, and I would like 9 olives. Let me get 6 banana peppers, but I want 4 on the left side and 2 on the right side.
That's probably accurate. It's probably
Yeah.
true.
Awesome. So kind of continuing on from your viewpoint, what's the biggest improvement opportunity for parts departments right now from what you're seeing?
I think that the biggest improvement is training, because a lot of parts managers get thrown into their position. And what we're seeing is a lot of newer ones right now, right? There's people retiring, people leaving the business, however they're leaving. There's a lot of people or parts managers that are new to the role, and there's no formal really training. There's some manufacturer training, but there's not really a lot of training for them. So
Looking back on it, the manufacturer training was more kind of geared towards the manufacturer. I felt like less of how to run the department. So I think you're dead on how to run the business, how to look at things, what to look at, what's going to move the needle. I love it.
yeah,
I think that's dead on.
Sorry, too.
You know?
Dealer involvement. because I've been selling Parts Edge for about 6 years or so, and I'm just in the last couple of years, I'm seeing more dealers get involved in their parts departments, and I think that's a huge opportunity for dealers because by them just standing back and not being involved, that's they're letting that investment sit there and not be as proactive as they can be. When they're working together with their parts manager and they're on the same page, that's when they can produce a better inventory together.
I
Yeah.
definitely think and you hit on it just a second ago, you're definitely seeing a shift in the industry from that standpoint of it's out of sight, out of mind to it's becoming a bigger focal point, and the better parts managers out there and the more dealers are involved with it, the better opportunity they have to be successful. And the training goes hand in hand with that. I love that.
Yeah. And I believe there's a little bit of a shift in this new crop of parts managers coming in. They're a little bit more strategic thinkers, and they're looking for that slight edge in the marketplace. And I think that the training thing goes right along with that. And that's one of the things that I think that even us as a company, so next week I'm going to Cincinnati. I'm going to do a boot camp, which normally my boot camp, Kaylee, is for service managers, and I just put 20 service managers in a room, and we kind of talk about like how to do like the service department thing from A to Z. But we've shifted on that a little bit, so now the room's going to be full of service and parts managers, and the exercises are going to be the two departments working together, which I think is also another thing that if I was going to train parts managers like this new crop, it would be them understanding that really parts is just it's a big part of the whole dealership, and that the integration part is vital. So I think that that's something that we're going to see is that it's not just parts department training, it's dealership training.
Well, I think it's the business, running it as a business instead of just running it as, I don't know how to simplify it and say, what's that?
Yeah, the redheaded stepchild.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's
right.
a great way to put that.
So
yeah, it's a great way to put it.
Good. I love that though. I think that that's the opportunity for training is huge, and I don't think anyone's done, at least that I've seen. It might be out there, but I don't think anyone's done like a customer centric type training platform for the parts department.
No.
And I think that that's where the opportunity is. Definitely on the structure, and Kaylee's going to talk more at the end of this a little bit more about Parts Edge and what they do. But I think that there's a hand in hand thing. Like if you can manage the asset and take really good care of the customer at the same time, like you'd be unstoppable, I think, as a parts department. So when you think about, we talked about the biggest opportunity. What about blind spots? What is it that you think parts managers don't know that they don't know, if that makes sense? Like from a blind spot perspective.
I would say when it comes to like inventory control, especially like newer parts managers, they don't know what they don't know is when it comes to the DMS and the settings and the sources, and I just don't think that it's taught very much, and so they kind of just let it be because they took over for someone else and it was running okay, so they just kind of like let it scoot on by, and so I think that's probably a blind spot. It's important to review those things constantly and understand why you need sources and how to organize the parts in a data aspect.
Yeah. I would 100% agree with that. I think the tribal knowledge of that's just the way it was set up and that's just what it was done. And, I remember years ago, there was a guy that I went into the store and their bin location was like 4 digits. You know what I mean? Like it was 1,000, 2,000, 2001, 2. And so I just asked him why that they weren't like 1, 2, 3, 4. And he said, well, it's just the way it's always been.
Yeah.
And so he just left it that way. So even down to just a bin location aspect of it, it's just the way it's always been. But I think you're dead on to that too. They don't know what they're looking for, and the more that they can be educated on what to look for and how quickly it can get out of control. Like as a parts manager, you may go along and your obsolete inventory may be really, really manageable, and you take your eyes off of it for 1 second, and it gets out of control really, really quick.
It can. Well, and that gets brought up a lot, obsolescence. And I always like to talk about, it's great that we want to try and get rid of obsolescence, but let's let's take a step back and look at why. Why do you have so much
Yes.
obsolescence? Are you looking at the categories that create this domino effect of obsolescence? So that's the important thing, and that's how you can control it and stay on top of it. And I think there's the DMSs are capable of it. It's just they make it a little bit harder to do it. So
Yeah, that's so great. So thinking about the obsolescence is the effect, not the cause, and then working backwards, that's genius.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really smart.
I use it as a diet pill analogy.
Why don't you leave the jokes to me?
No, not a joke. Not a joke.
Continue
I'm
on.
serious.
Go ahead.
So think about it. If I want to lose weight and I take a diet pill, I solve the results, the outcome, right? I lose weight. But the truth of the matter is, I still don't exercise. I'm still having too many of these. I'm still having too many of those. So I haven't solved anything. I haven't fixed the issue. And most of the time, I return all my inventory to the manufacturer, but I don't solve the issue that's contributing to it.
Yeah.
So I think that's great.
I love that analogy. It's like kind of like a Band-Aid. You're just kind of putting a Band-Aid on it. But your analogy is better.
It was pretty good at the end of the day. Yeah, it reminds me a lot of organization. And last night, my girlfriend, she asked me to put ketchup on the grocery list, and now I can't read anything.
I don't get it.
Just let it sit there for a second, Kaylee.
I get it now. I get it. Because you're
So
like
that-
a physical paper. Like I'm thinking grocery list because I use an app. So I'm like, why would you? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, that's an awesome way to think.
That was a good way to call me old. That worked out really well. So funny. All right, cool. So now this is a little bit of a tougher question, but just because you've had exposure to a lot, oh boy, she says, because you've had exposure to a lot of parts departments and a lot of parts managers, what are 3 characteristics that you see from the highest performing parts managers?
Oh, that's not a hard question. That's a good question.
Oh, I thought it was going to be difficult. Hey, knock it out of the park. I'm ready.
So I would start with like slightly OCD, but like in a good way, like a good OCD.
So how do I write that in? Are you going to write slightly OCD?
Yeah, but I'm going to make the O, the C, and the D exactly the same size.
Yeah, exactly the same size. Well, I can say that because I am OCD, so I'm like, okay, I get it. I get why they're the way that they are. So I would say OCD, very detailed, very efficient. Like,
Hey, can we go back?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Can we go back to the OCD thing for just a second? Because I'm wondering on that. I'd like to unpack that.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we have her give us the list, and then you can go back and unpack.
That means I need to close my mouth and.
So we have slightly OCD, and then detailed and a focus on efficiency.
Efficient, because efficiency to me, like they look at scenarios or situations and they're looking at it. I talk about them like they're it feels weird, but and I'm actually feel like I'm talking about my husband because he's a parts manager.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
wait a minute. So did you get married before you started with Parts Edge?
So he how long have we been married? We've been together a long time, pretty much the whole time I've worked at Parts Edge. But
did he become a parts manager because you work at Parts Edge? You're like, oh, Kaylee, that's great. I'm gonna get into that career. And like he was a plumber before?
No, actually, okay. So he was a brewer, like a brewery. He worked at a brewery, and he didn't brew the beer. He did production. So he like ran the bottling line.
But still, like that's a man's dream job. You know that, right?
Oh yeah, no, it was the best job ever. Like beer all the time, coming home, like low fills, like it was
the good stuff. Yeah,
good stuff. Because it was Ballast Point in San Diego, so their beer was good. But anyways, so long story short, they got bought out. He got laid off, and so we took the opportunity to move, and that's why we're in Arizona. So we have 3 dealerships here. One of them was hiring for a parts manager, and he was in this like, I'm starting over. I was able to still work at Parts Edge, obviously, because I'm like, that's, I'm not going to move unless I can still work at Parts Edge. And he applied and got the parts manager. Now he's fixed ops, so it's 3 years.
Oh wow!
But he went from outside the industry to being a parts manager.
Yeah.
That's really impressive.
Good parts manager though, because I live with him, so I'm like, okay, your mind is like a parts manager's mind.
That's funny.
Does he possess all three qualities?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I love
And
it.
so
All
that's
right.
why I was talking about the efficiency. Like he'll look at situations or scenarios and like, how can I save the most amount of time and be like so efficient with, I'm like, can we just like figure it out as we go? And he has to like think about it. So
He wants to game plan.
yeah.
I get it. All right, now you can unpack.
Now
sir.
you can go back to OCD.
Yeah, so let's go back to the OCD one. I guess just maybe unpack that. Do we mean OCD in the way they run their day? Do you mean OCD in the way they lay their department out? Do you mean OCD in the way the parts are on the shelf? Like, I'm just wondering from that standpoint.
I think it depends on the parts manager. Some are really OCD with the way that their parts are organized. Some are OCD with their people. It just kind of depends. But I think that it kind of, as a whole, they're just really organized people. They just have their stuff, like if I walk into a dealership and the parts manager's desk is a mess, then that's kind of a red flag to me, at least.
Oh yeah,
I would agree with that.
We both agree with that.
Very much so.
I also think the same thing of the special order parts bin.
Oh, that too, yes.
You can tell a lot just walking around and looking at stuff.
That's
You
right.
can tell a lot about the business for sure.
Yeah. And if they have a labeler, yeah.
And then detail.
Wrangler's good too. That's great.
Yeah, that's true. Detail, are you, in that sense, are we talking about the structure of the inventory, or are you talking about detail just, like, tell me more about that. I guess I want to know.
Held in the numbers, because like parts managers typically love numbers and reports and
Yes.
to look at. So that would be like the detailed aspect of because I think you have to be detailed to be a parts manager. There's so many moving parts literally that you have to like be so detailed and organized. So
That's great. Yeah, it's so funny. I remember, speaking of detailed and organized, I remember Cliff and I, it's probably been like a year and a half since this happened, but he's going to remember it. But we walked into a parts department, which it had that like a bomb went off feel to it, but at the same time, it was a bomb that went off a long, long time ago. And I remember looking at one of the boxes, and it had like the order date on it, and it literally was 2004.
Yeah.
what year
And
did you guys go to the store?
This was 2021.
Oh, okay.
And then they're like, we have a lot of obsolete inventory. And I'm like, I'd just be happy to find a part that was produced in this decade.
Right.
And
But it goes back to the tribal thing. That's the way they had always done it. That's the way we, and it goes back to what you just said. If you looked at this gentleman's desk, you would know.
it was a mess, right? Yeah. So all three of the things that Kaylee pointed out, the slightly OCD, the detail, and the efficient, like that person had none of those things.
No.
But yeah, it's.
May have wanted to be that, but he was so overwhelmed with, or he or she was so overwhelmed with like everything, like where do you start when it's that messy, especially if you take over and it's like.
So I think that's probably a really good lead into our last topic, which is telling us a little bit about Parts Edge, because I think that I would guess when people don't know what else to do is probably when you guys get called.
Yeah, we do.
So just kind of unpack that for us a little bit about, what is Parts Edge doing for dealers, and how are you helping out parts departments?
So, it depends on the level of parts manager. I always, whenever I start talking to a dealership, I always want to find out what is that parts manager's goals, where are they at in their career and their process, because what we're going to do is going to be slightly different. The goal is still the same, producing a more efficient inventory to serve the customers better, but, their struggles of things might be different than a super advanced parts manager. So, what we're doing is really showing parts managers their true data and how to look at their inventories and how to make better decisions, how to control the DMS better, how to organize the data and the parts within that DMS, and really just looking at everything as a whole. And then, like I mentioned before, getting the dealer involved, getting the service manager, getting everyone on the same page, because everyone in those areas speak a different language. So we're kind of bridging that gap and getting everyone on the same page. So.
Oh, I love that. That's great. Yeah, I was Kaylee and I were talking a little bit before we started filming, and I've never heard anybody say anything bad about the two guys that are the president and vice president, or president and CEO, or something like that. Like
Founders.
they've got a phenomenal reputation in the industry, and like I've never heard anybody that's used them say anything other than like it helped propel them to the next level of organization. So it's a testament to those guys and to you who's out there, talking with the clients every day and everything like that. So keep doing what you're doing. I think it's awesome. What was it really? And this is going off the reservation a little bit, but like whose idea was it to start the Parts Girl podcast? Was that your idea, or what kind of sparked that?
So it was my idea. So when COVID happened, there was this shift. So, networking and getting to know people was, it just didn't really happen, right? Like we couldn't go to dealerships. We were in a weird state. So I started getting active on LinkedIn, and then I just started posting about my day or things I was feeling, or talking about whatever's going on with Parts Edge. And then I started going on other podcasts. So I thought it would be a great opportunity for me to start a podcast specifically for parts, because everyone talks about fixed ops, but it's really service. They don't really talk about parts. So that's kind of why.
They don't mean it.
Yeah, it's not on purpose, but it just happens. So, so yeah, that's kind of how it started. And I'm looking for more parts people to go on the podcast. They're really hard to get on, but we were talking about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of just going with the flow.
Well, I love it. So we're huge fans. Please keep doing what you're doing, and it's been a lot of fun talking to you. And I thought that you did an amazing job, and you rolled really, really well with Cliff's terrible jokes. And
well, I think you guys are doing something really great too, because when I saw this, I was like, yes, more parts stuff. Like we're people, like this is what we need to talk about. So, yeah, good job for you guys too.
Well, thank you
Thanks,
so
Tim.
much. So that'll do it today for this episode. Let's see if Cliff remembers his line of parts hold.
Here to fill the order.